refused to shake hands with a black CEO. The next morning, $5 billion disappeared overnight. John Mills never imagined that his simple life as a mechanic would be thrust into the spotlight over one single moment. The air was thick with anticipation in the bustling Midwestern city. The annual business fair was just around the corner, and local chatter buzzed about the possible presence of Marcus Finch, the sharp-minded CEO who now directed a billion-dollar tech empire. A black man standing at the helm of innovation sparked both hope and fears in their predominantly white community. With two energetic children and a loving wife, Lorraine, John clung to his work and the values instilled by his family. As the fair approached, excitement intertwined with tension. A parade of brightly colored stalls filled with handmade crafts, irresistible baked goods, and proudly displayed services from local heroes awaited, but whispers hissed beneath the surface. "Can we trust someone so different?" some neighbors muttered beneath their breaths. John's heart clenched. His children, Timothy and Sarah, played blissfully unaware, their laughter ringing like chimes in the air, innocent to the undercurrents of prejudice brewing among the adults. At the fair, when the moment arrived, the crowd hushed as Marcus approached with a confident smile, his presence commanding attention. John felt his heart race. As they exchanged pleasantries, John suddenly froze. He felt warmth crawl up his spine as he faced Marcus, his heart conflicted, a heady mix of pride and caution. With a heavy heart, he refused the handshake. "I don't support what you represent," he declared, voice shaking yet resolute. Gasps echoed around him, a ripple of disbelief. The air crackled with tension. That night, John could hardly sleep. Neighbors darned their backs, others praised him for his moral stand, and inside his chest, he felt the heaviness of shame mixed with confusion. Lorraine tried to comfort him. "John, we didn't raise the kids to hold hatred in our hearts," but her words hung like a weight. The morning news would announce a staggering $5 billion loss linked directly to Marcus's company. Suddenly, John was at the center of a ferocious storm, his refusal dragging his family into the eye of furious judgment. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. John found himself torn between the integrity of his upbringing and the heartache it had caused his family.
Cringing at the thought of dinner-table conversations turning to whispers behind their backs, he thought of Timothy and Sarah's bright smiles fading into shadows cast by fear. Just as the weight of community pressure tightened around him, a surprising invitation came in. Marcus wanted to meet. The night before the meeting was quiet yet charged. John and Lorraine sat on the porch, watching their children play under the glow of the streetlights, the world still innocent around them. As they shared their worries and hopes, John felt the stirrings of resilience within, a craving to mend the hurt. He could either confirm the rift that had opened wide, or attempt to bridge it. Questions raced through his mind as he looked out toward the horizon. Could he find a way to heal not just his family's wounds, but also the bigger ones in their community? The answers loomed like shadows in the dark, but he could feel the dawn creeping in. What would he say? Only time would tell. As the morning sun broke through the darkness, John's mind was still a storm of fears and doubts. He paced his small living room, each step heavy with the weight of impending conversation. The clock tick-tocked ominously, echoing in his mind like a countdown to a clash of worlds. Lorraine watched him with worry etched on the face, her hands wrapped tightly around a warm mug of coffee. "It's going to be okay," she said softly, but the reassurance in her eyes battled against the uncertainty that clouded his heart. "Is it?" he questioned, voice deeper than he intended, revealing the cracks in his confidence. "Can we really talk to someone who stands for everything I've been taught to reject?" She placed the mug down, standing up to meet him. "You don't need to agree with everything Marcus Finch represents, but maybe, just maybe, this is a chance to understand, to mend." John took a deep breath, the taste of regret lingering. "Do you really believe it can change anything?" "Everything begins with conversation, John. Just listen." The meeting was set in a sleek office downtown, a reflection of the modern world that Marcus built, contrasting sharply with John's hard-working roots. Entering the building, John felt small, a ghost in a realm of wealth and power. Walls of glass towered around him, allowing a view into possibilities he had never imagined. As he approached Marcus's office, he paused, fighting against the waves of anxiety washing over him. Then he stepped inside. "Mr. Mills," Marcus greeted, exuding an air of calm confidence. His handshake felt firm and warm, a stark contrast to the moment they shared publicly at the fair. John's breath caught in his throat. "I appreciate you coming today." "Thank you for having me," John replied, his voice barely above a whisper. They settled across from one another at a table that felt wide enough to hold their differences. Marcus started talking about his vision for the future, passion radiating from him like the sun breaking dawn.
He spoke of diversity, innovation, and the strength of a community united by progress. Every word struck a chord, yet the echoes of disbelief from the fair buzzed like angry bees in John's mind. "Why me?" John finally asked, unable to suppress his curiosity. "Why reach out after what happened?" "Because change starts with honesty," Marcus replied, his gaze steady. "You've built your principles on what you believe is right. I want you to challenge your views, just as I challenge mine every day." John felt his heart race. Could this be an olive branch rather than a battleground? Their worlds had collided violently, yet here they were, two men from opposing walks of life seeking to bridge a divide. As they talked, John found his defenses melting, replaced with a growing understanding. He realized that Marcus wasn't just a CEO. He was a man with dreams, disappointments, and a tireless will to fight for equity. John began to wonder if perhaps turning away might have meant missing an opportunity to connect and learn. But then, a thought struck him hard. Would his neighbors understand? Would they see his willingness to engage as strength or weakness? The conversation flowed, and as it drew to a close, John felt a flicker of hope. Yet unease still lingered, forming a barrier against the acceptance he craved. "Can you help me help them?" John asked suddenly, surprising himself with the question. "The community, can we bring them together to talk?" Marcus smiled, his eyes lighting up with possibility. "That's exactly what we must do. It's time for healing." As they agreed on a plan, John took a deep breath. Was this the beginning of a transformation? Or had he just opened a door to a struggle that would stretch beyond their conversation? With a mix of hope and fear, John left the office, the weight of choice hanging in the air. The battle was only beginning. Would the town embrace this new path or push back harder than before? As he walked into the bustling city streets, the answer hung just out of reach. What awaited him at home loomed larger than ever, and John couldn't shake the feeling that the storm had merely just shifted. John stepped back into the noisy rhythm of the city. The bustling streets felt different now. There was a strange energy in the air, a mix of hope and anxiety churning in his gut. He had taken a step into the unknown, and he didn't yet know how far that leap would take him. As he made his way home, John's thoughts swirled like leaves caught in a whirlwind. Was he really ready to take this back to his community? The faces of his neighbors danced in his mind, some filled with respect for tradition, others alive with longing for progress. He could almost hear their murmurs, their doubts, all the reasons this could go wrong. Arriving at home, he found Lorraine waiting for him, her brow creased with concern. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice trembling just slightly. "It went better than I expected," he said, hesitating as he tried to form the words to explain the shift within him. "We talked about the community, bringing people together." Lorraine's eyes widened. "And?" John took a deep breath. "He wants to help." The incredulous look on her face struck him with a jolt of uncertainty. "Help how?" "We're planning a community meeting," he said, sensing the weight of each word, "to talk things through. Maybe heal some wounds." "But John, do you really think that's enough?" Her voice was even and thoughtful, yet he could hear the fear beneath it. "What if they don't want to listen?" "I think we have to try," he replied, a resolve edging into his voice. "What if this could turn into something good, not just for us, but for the whole town?" Lorraine took a step closer, her eyes searching his. "You really believe that?" He nodded slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. "I have to. It's not just about us anymore. It's about everyone." They stood there, suspended in the gravity of his words. Tension stretched between them, as the implications hung heavy in the room. Would their neighbors see his efforts as betrayal or bravery? "Okay, I'm with you," Lorraine said softly, squeezing his hand. "But we'll need a plan." The reality of what he had to do settled on his shoulders. They began to brainstorm. Flyers, community centers, social media. How could he encourage a conversation that might change the course of their lives?
But with every idea they tossed back and forth, a shadow of doubt flitted across John's mind. Could this really unite them, or just deepen the rift? The hours passed, and night fell quietly. The atmosphere of hope started to fester into anxiety, clawing at his insides. Just as he thought he had calmed the storm, worry flooded back in waves. What if it all blew up in his face? What if his attempt to bridge the gap led to disaster? Laying in bed later, he stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. The ticking clock echoed like a heartbeat in the stillness. Would he wake up tomorrow and feel the same way? What if his community rejected what he was trying to do? At that moment, his phone buzzed on the nightstand, shattering the silence. It was a message from Marcus. "We need to talk," it read, accompanied by an article link. John's heart raced as he clicked it open. The headline left him frozen, eyes widening at the words. $5 billion disappears overnight. Suddenly, the world outside seemed to hold its breath. How would this news change everything? Did this have anything to do with the bridge he was trying to build? John felt an overwhelming wave of dread and uncertainty wash over him. What role would he play in what was about to unfold? And how would his community react to him now? The morning sun broke through the window, spilling light across the room. John blinked awake, his mind still tangled in the chaos from the night before.
The news headline looped in his mind, unable to shake loose. Was it only a coincidence, or something bigger? He rolled over, glancing at Lorraine still asleep, her face peaceful, unaware of the brewing storm. He stumbled out of bed and made his way to the kitchen. The smell of brewed coffee stirred him into action, but the anxiety clung to him like a shadow. A sense of urgency tinged every step he took as he sifted through thoughts of his community, of the meeting that lay ahead. Whoever they were, whatever they needed, he knew change was necessary. With a steaming cup in hand, he flipped on the news. The anchor was discussing the implications of the missing money, the ripples of panic spreading through financial markets. "This has the potential to change every corner of the nation," the anchor warned. John's heart raced as he absorbed the weight of those words. Could this incident make his community's already deep-seated tension surface? As if on cue, Lorraine walked into the room. She caught a glimpse of the screen and frowned. "Did you see? They're saying it's connected to that CEO's rejection. People are furious." John could feel the air between them thick with uncertainty. "I don't know what it means yet," he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "But I think it's going to get loud around here real quick." They agreed to turn off the news. The silence that followed was heavy, layered with unspoken fears. The tension of the unknown loomed, and John wondered if their community meeting was now timed to coincide with a different wave of anger. Would they lean into the chaos, or could he still guide them toward unity? They spent the morning on the phone, reaching out to neighbors, trying to rally people for the meeting. Some voices offered support, others expressed doubts or outright disinterest. Hours later, with a tangle of mixed messages and uncertain responses, John closed his eyes, wishing for clarity amidst the noise. Later in the afternoon, Marcus arrived, his face set in a serious expression. "We need to talk about the uproar. It's going viral. People are scared," he said, sinking into a chair across from John. Lorraine hovered nearby, concerned. "Scared or scared of change?" John shot back, the edge in his voice surprising even him. Marcus raised an eyebrow, shaking his head slowly. "Listen, John, people don't easily accept disruption. You're proposing new ideas, but they might feel backed into a corner, especially now. That article doesn't just mention money vanishing, it points fingers." John opened his mouth to respond, but paused. What if he had miscalculated? Would the meeting he envisioned allow people to voice their anger, or would it just become another battlefield? With a sigh, Marcus continued, "You can't ignore this. We have to address what people are thinking first." His words struck a chord. What if this upheaval could either unite them or deepen their divides? John felt the stakes rise higher than ever. Just then, the sound of a notification broke the tension. John reached for his phone, heart racing once more. Another message from a neighbor. "Did you hear what happened next?" There was no turning back now. What was about to unfold? Would their meeting bring clarity or chaos? John's pulse quickened. The next chapter of their story was already writing itself, but would he have the courage to face it? John stared at his phone, the message blinking at him as if demanding attention. $5 billion gone, and with it, a sense of stability. The weight of it settled heavily on his chest. He felt the urgency clawing at him harder than before. "What did they say?" Marcus asked, leaning forward, his hands clasped in front of him. Lorraine shuffled closer, an anxious look crossing her face.
Just something about more fallout from yesterday's announcement. I think it's related, John managed, his voice tight. The heat in the kitchen grew stifling, the chaotic energy ringing in his ears. I don't want to think about another disaster, Lorraine mumbled. But John could feel the tension between his excitement and dread. This meeting has to be different. It can't just be about voicing anger. It has to show people a new way. Are you sure you can trust them to follow your lead? Marcus questioned, his brows furrowed. Especially now? John held his breath. Ignoring his friend's concern felt easier than addressing it. But the thought lingered in his mind. What if he was leading people straight into a trap, one they couldn't escape from? As the clock ticked toward the meeting, John found himself pacing the floor. The moment he had been carefully crafting felt close at hand, yet it seemed more precarious than ever. Would the community see the chance for something new, or would they cling to their fears and rifts? His heart beat violently as he debated his every decision. Let's review what we want to convey, Lorraine suggested, stepping forward with a subtle strength. People need hope right now. John nodded, her words firming his resolve. They gathered their points about unity, growth, and a way out of this mess, a plan to breathe fresh air into the situation. I believe we can work together, he declared, feeling the weight begin to lift. But we can't just talk. We need to hear them too. If we listen, maybe we can help them look forward. The three of them deliberated until every angle was explored, every contingency weighed. But amid their preparations, John felt a shadow of doubt cling to him, the specter of unrest lurking just out of sight. He paused, realizing the stakes were not just personal, but community-wide. There was hope, but it was tenuous. The phone buzzed again, another notification lighting up the screen. John saw the name flash, a neighbor known for her sharp tongue and distrustful nature. I hope you're ready for the backlash tomorrow. I doubt people will just sit and let you preach, she warned.
John sighed deeply, sharing a glance with Lorraine. Maybe she's right, he admitted reluctantly, but it doesn't mean we won't try. As the time crept closer to the meeting, the heaviness crawled back. There was a palpable energy in the air, as if the world was holding its breath. John glanced at Lorraine. Are we ready for this? Now he felt the weight of responsibility more than ever. It wasn't just about leading, it was about being brave enough to listen, to rally in a way that counted. With a sharp breath, he nodded, accepting the challenge ahead. The doorbell rang suddenly, sharp and clear, cutting through the tension in the room. John exchanged a nervous look with Lorraine and Marcus. Who could that be now? He wondered aloud. Feeling his heart hammer, John approached the door. What if it was more bad news, or perhaps someone looking for answers? With each step, he felt uncertainty cascade like a wave, swelling, until it broke at the moment he finally swung open the door. The person on the other side would change everything yet again. What awaited him? Hello? Are you ready? The voice said, and John's future hung in the balance. Standing on his doorstep was a woman he hardly knew but recognized immediately. Sophie, a local community organizer, was known for her fierce advocacy and relentless determination. Her eyes sparkled with intensity. I've been watching you, she declared, her voice steady despite the upheaval in the air, and I think you're on the edge of something big. Are you ready to step into that role? John blinked, stunned. The unexpected forcefulness in her demeanor was both invigorating and daunting. The weight of the world seemed to shift ever so slightly. I'm trying to prepare for a meeting, he stammered, sidestepping her probing gaze. Sophie stepped forward, crossing the threshold with confidence. This isn't just about what you're going to say at that meeting. It's about action, real action. People are looking for someone to lean on, someone to trust. You have to be that person. John swallowed hard. Her words struck a chord deep inside him, echoing around the doubts and fears that had taken root in his heart. But what if they don't listen? What if they just see my flaws? They will, she replied bluntly, her voice unwavering. But for every critic, there will be someone who needs to hear your courage. The noise is loud right now, but that's just it. It can drown out your voice if you let it. Marcus and Lorraine watched in silence, the tension in their postures indicating they too felt the weight of this unexpected conversation. What does that look like? John asked, desperation creeping into his tone. It looks like standing firm, being vulnerable, and showing them a different path, Sophie said, her eyes fierce yet compassionate. People need to know you're human. They need to see that you care enough to fight for them. It's not about perfection. It's about your willingness to show up.
John felt a flicker of hope ignite. He remembered all those moments when he'd sat in silence while others spoke, all those ideas he'd tucked away out of fear. Those thoughts began taming the storm inside him. "You can do this," Lorraine said softly, her reassuring presence a balm for his rising anxiety. "I believe in you. It's why we're here. We're in this together." The three of them shared a brief moment, the air thickening with the realization of their collective strength. John felt their hope wrap around him like a warm blanket. Yet even with this newfound courage, anxiety loomed larger than ever. "Am I really ready?" he wondered aloud, glancing at his friends. "What if it all backfires? What if my words get twisted?" Sophie placed a hand on his arm. "You can't control their reactions, but you can control your message. Speak from your heart. It's the only way through this." Before he could respond, the phone buzzed again in his pocket. The urgency of its vibration cut through the palpable moment. He hesitated, the weight of anticipation wrapping around him as he pulled it out. The notification was another message, another warning. "John, they're gathering. There are whispers of an uprising. You need to act now." His heart pounded in his chest as chills traveled down his spine. "Are they really going to stand against us?" he said, incredulous, his mind racing. Sophie leaned closer, her voice low but urgent. "If you don't step up, they might, and you have to ask yourself, what will that mean for all of us?" As their eyes locked, a jolt of understanding passed between them. The stakes had risen. John took a deep breath, feeling something shift within him. Tomorrow would not just be another meeting, it would be a defining moment for himself and his community. But before he could fully grasp the enormity of that responsibility, he realized there was no turning back. The time had come. There would be no more hiding. "Let's do this," he said finally, a sense of resolve burning in his chest. As the words left his lips, he felt a flicker of anticipation, almost electric. What would happen next? Would the community stand tall alongside him, or would they turn their backs in the face of change? Tomorrow would tell. Morning brought with it a thick fog, hazing the edges of John's vision as he stepped outside. He could almost taste the tension in the air, swirling like the cool mist that clung to the ground. Today wasn't just another day. It felt like the dawn of something monumental. With each step towards the meeting place, the weight of Sophie's words echoed in his ears. "You have to be that person." He clutched his phone tightly, its screen flickering with notifications that seemed to amplify his anxiety. The gravity of their gathering weighed on him. "Remember, John," Marcus said beside him, breaking the silence. "This isn't just about you. It's about everyone who's counting on you."
His words were a steadying presence, but they didn't eradicate the fluttering in John's stomach. As they approached the community center, he saw familiar faces, some filled with curiosity, others with skepticism. The atmosphere simmered, charged with unspoken questions. John felt their eyes on him, measuring him, weighing his worthiness to lead. "Are you ready?" Lorraine asked, her voice steady. Yet John saw a flicker of concern in her eyes. He could feel his heart hammering in response, a rhythm that echoed the uncertainty swirling within him. "Let's do this," he said, finding strength in her gaze. Behind him, Sophie nodded, a firm smile of encouragement bolstering his resolve. They entered the building together, a small but determined group. Inside, the room buzzed with low conversations. He glimpsed people he'd known for years, and the tension was palpable. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff looking down, both exhilarating and terrifying. John stepped to the front, his pulse racing. "Thank you for coming," he began, his voice rising above the whispers. "I know things have been uncertain lately, and there are whispers of division and fear." He could see nods in the crowd, voices hushed, waiting for what he would say next. "Today, we need to stand together. No matter our backgrounds, our differences, we share the same hopes for our community." The words flowed out, a rush that felt both right and risky. But before he could build on that thought, someone in the back shouted, "What do you know about our struggles?" Hearing that was like a punch to the gut. The accusation hung in the air, dividing the room like a dark cloud. "I know enough to understand that we must unite, not tear each other apart," he replied, trying to inject strength in his voice, though he felt the confidence ebbing away like a tide pulling back. There was murmuring, some in support while others muttered under their breath.
Doubts crept into John's mind again, sowing seeds of despair. What if he failed? As he caught Sophie's gaze from across the room, she nodded subtly, urging him to keep going. People need a leader, she seemed to say without words, spurring him on. Just as he regained his footing, another voice broke the tension. We don't want empty promises. We want real change. The room fell silent, the weight of that statement pressing down on everyone. John's heart sank. Had he made a mistake stepping forward? I understand. That's why I'm here. To make sure we're heard. To trust that together, we can create the change we need. Feeling the eyes of the many on him, confidence surged once more. The crowd warmed slightly to his earnestness. But still, whispers danced at the edges of the room, threatening to drown out his message. Just as he felt the rhythm of hope building, a commotion erupted at the back of the room. John's heart dropped as he turned to see several people, faces tense, all clambering to check their phones. What's happening?
He asked, confusion wrinkling his brow. A woman turned, horror painting her face. The stock market just crashed. Billions are gone. The sudden shock gripped the room, and for an instant the meeting's purpose faded under the weight of disbelief. As he processed the chaos around him, an even deeper question lodged itself firmly in John's mind. What did this mean for their fight? Why now, he wondered, heart racing as the gravity of the moment overwhelmed him. Sophie's eyes remained locked on his, a mix of urgency and determination. Whatever is happening out there, she said resolutely, we can't let it divide us. In that tide of uncertainty, John felt a new resolve blossom, a calling to react, to unite in the face of adversity. What actions would they take now? The questions loomed larger than any before. With a voice barely above a whisper, he asked, What do we do next? And in that moment, the future hung suspended, waiting for an answer that would define them all. The murmur of confusion spread through the crowd, punctuated by the ringing of phones and the flickering glow of screens as people absorbed the news. John felt the weight of the moment pressing down on his chest, making it hard to breathe. The stakes had risen sharply. Now they weren't just fighting for unity, but against an unseen force shaking the very foundation of their lives. What does this mean for our community? Lorraine asked, her voice shaking slightly as she processed the implications of the market crash. Anxiety rippled through the crowd. Conversations rose and fell in desperate waves, each voice tinged with fear and uncertainty. Sophie stepped closer to John, her intense gaze searching his face for answers. We need to channel this energy, she urged, her voice low but firm. People need hope more than ever. John nodded, but the doubt still clung to him. He cleared his throat, trying to gather the strength to speak again. I know this is daunting, but we can't let fear lead us. This is our chance to show that we can come together as a community. His words felt hollow in his own chest as murmurs of disagreement rippled around him. A tall man in the back shook his head. You think we can just ignore what's happening out there? He shouted. This crash could ruin lives. How do we come together when we're all scared for our families? The man's voice struck a chord, and the tension in the room thickened. I could see the faces of parents, workers, and the elderly. The hope that had sparked earlier was flickering like a candle in the wind, in danger of being snuffed out. This is exactly why we need each other, John called out, his voice rising with urgency. Let's not let this divide us. We need to focus on what we can do, not what we can't. Before he could finish, someone shouted from the side, What are we supposed to do? Just sit tight and hope it gets better? A woman stood at the front, her eyes glistening. I'm worried about my job. What if I lose everything? The vulnerability in her voice caught the crowd. John took a deep breath, action surging within him. What if we use this moment to lift each other up? Let's gather resources, share job openings, support local businesses, create a mutual aid group. We can help each other weather this storm. The room held its breath. For a moment, John thought he saw acceptance in a few faces. Yeah, let's do that, someone called. Encouragement began to build like a tide. Small voices of support broke through the thick atmosphere, lifting each other's spirits. Sophie stepped beside him, her smile lighting up the room. We are stronger together than apart. Look around you. This is our family. People began nodding, absorbing her words. John felt a renewed spark of hope ignite,
moving from a flicker to a flame. Each clapping hand seemed to fan the fire, sparking conversation and collaboration. They could make a plan. This crash might threaten to tear them apart, but they had a chance to emerge united. Just then, a loud crash drew everyone's attention to the entrance. A group of young activists burst in, faces wild with excitement and fear. "The news is spreading fast. If we organize now, we can show the world we won't give in." What followed was a whirlwind of voices and ideas. Papers flew about, phones rang with new connections, and slowly the atmosphere transformed. But amidst the surge of energy, a cold realization brushed against the back of John's mind. For every path forward they explored, there were undercurrents of risk lurking just beneath the surface. As conversations buzzed around him, one thought tangled itself in John's heart. What would it take to truly rally everyone together when chaos seemed to rule the day? He looked at Sophie, concern pooling in his chest again. Are we strong enough for this? The fire in Sophie's eyes flickered, then flared brighter. We have to be, John. Every moment counts. And with that, the urgency of their endeavor sank in deep, intertwining with the persistence of their hopes. They were at a crossroads, and their next steps could determine everything. As plans began to form in the room, another question arose, leaving the air thick with anticipation. Could they stand firm against the storm, or would they be swept away by the tide of fear? The energy in the room crackled, now infused with a mix of anxiety and determination. John felt the pulse of urgency slip under his skin, feeding his resolve. People were quickly gathering in clusters, discussing ideas, sharing stories etched with worry, and plotting pathways for their community. "Let's start a website," one young woman suggested, her voice rising above the noise. "We can list resources, create a community board for job postings, and share updates on local businesses." "Yes," another voice chimed in, "and we can organize a rally to show we're standing together."
If the press catches wind of this, it could really put pressure on those who make the decisions. John glanced at Sophie, who nodded approvingly. He could see the flicker of hope mirrored in her gaze, and it filled him with a renewed conviction. "What about a series of community workshops?" Sophie proposed, her enthusiasm contagious. "We can educate people on financial literacy and small business management, empower our community to take control back." The idea resonated, sparking murmurs of agreement. Voices began to overlap as more ideas tumbled into the air, igniting the room like sparks igniting tinder. Plans for support groups, donation drives, and skill-sharing events began to take root, eating away at the fear that had clutched at their hearts just moments ago. As they stood in the midst of the frenzy, an older gentleman raised a hand, his face creased with concern. "It sounds wonderful to be so positive, but we need to know if these plans will actually work. What if we don't have the manpower? Or worse, what if it doesn't make any difference?" Silence fell for a moment, the kind that felt heavy and uncertain. John took a step forward, his heart racing. "Every change starts small. We can't promise a perfect solution, but we can promise to try. Every effort counts, and if we all chip in, it makes the burden lighter." His voice broke slightly at the last phrase, the weight of responsibility sinking into him. Each word felt like an oath, an agreement that they would fight together, whatever the challenge. Sophie moved to his side, her hand resting lightly on his forearm. "Together, we're stronger than our fears. This is a chance to build something new, to prove that our community can survive and thrive amidst adversity." John could feel the tide of emotion shifting back in their favor, the flickers of hope slowly turning into a blaze. Suddenly, the door swung open wide again, and the activists from earlier re-entered, more frantic than before. "There's a rumor going around. Some big corporations are planning to leave town because of the crash. They think we won't challenge them." The news hit like a bombshell. Gasps echoed around the room, faces turned pale. It was as if the weight of despair had returned, dragging them back into desperation. John clenched his jaw, the urge to panic clawing at him. "No, we can't let them think that," he shouted, finding the strength to raise his voice above the din. "This is our home. We can't allow them to walk away from us. We get organized now, before it's too late." The urgency in his tone acted like a galvanizing spark, the room metamorphosing back into a hive of activity once more. "We can conduct a survey to show just how many businesses depend on the community's support," someone shouted, their hands flying as they scribbled down ideas. "Yes, and we can hold town hall meetings, bring everyone into the conversation, keep transparency alive," another voice added, the momentum building quickly.
But as these hopeful plans began to mold into something concrete,
A nagging thought loomed in John's mind, a whisper of dread. What if they put everything on the line, only to have the corporations dismiss them? And then, just as that thought solidified into a strength-sapping concern, Sophie squeezed his hand. "We're going to make it through this, John. They can't silence us." Their eyes locked, an unspoken promise passing between them. But would they really have the strength to face the inevitable challenges ahead? As the room buzzed with renewed determination, John felt an unsettling question echo in his mind. What would happen when the companies finally decided to leave? Would their efforts be enough to rally the community together, or would it all unravel before their eyes? The day had arrived, and the community center buzzed with nervous energy. John stood at the front, heart racing. People streamed in, some faces filled with hope, others etched with anxiety. The stakes were high, and every step was a dance on the edge of uncertainty. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting's official start, he felt the weight of anticipation pressing down. He glanced at Lorraine, who offered a reassuring smile. Her support steadied him, anchoring his resolve amidst the sea of emotions swirling around him. "Good evening, everyone," John began, his voice quaking slightly but strong. "I know these are tough times. The recent news has shaken us all. But we're not here just to talk about the problems. We're here to find solutions together." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as eyes locked onto him. Some nodded, others remained skeptical, arms crossed defensively. He could feel the tension in the air, thick and palpable. It was time for action. The first voice to break through came from an elderly man. "John, how can we trust this will actually lead to change? We've seen promises made before." The doubt resonated deeply within John. He knew that empty words would only deepen the rift. "Change doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with us," he replied, his voice gaining fervor. "Each idea we share today is a step toward building a better future for all of us." Next, Sophie stepped in, her positioning near him a powerful symbol of unity. "We're going to conduct surveys," she said with confidence, "to map out exactly what's needed in our community. This isn't about leaders or followers. It's about partnership. Everyone has a role to play." Encouragement buzzed through the room, but John sensed the foundation still shaking under them. The whispers of doubt hung dangerously close, threatening to break the fragile atmosphere. "Let's not forget about the local businesses," a woman piped up, her voice shaky but determined. "We can do outreach to support them. If they're struggling, our community will feel the effects first." "That's right," came a shout from the back. "We could create a buy local week, shine a light on our businesses."
Ideas cascaded like a waterfall, voices melding into a choir of action. Hope assembled from fragments of shared concerns, stitching their community together. They began forming committees, making plans, sharing responsibilities, a solidarity that had been absent for too long. But deep down, John knew they were still at risk of backlash from outside forces. What would happen if the corporations left? Would they stand together then, or scatter in fear? The looming question hung in John's chest like a stone. "Listen," John called, bringing a hush of attention back to him. "We can build our own strength while also fighting for our community. If anyone thinks we'll roll over silently, they're in for a shock. We will create a petition and make sure our voices are heard throughout the city." A swell of passion rose through the room, the fire igniting their spirits. The energy transformed from apprehension into electric excitement. Each individual was weaving threads of change against an uncertain backdrop. But just as hope surged forward, John's phone buzzed, jolting him back into reality. He glanced down, heart sinking as he read another notification. Corporations threatening layoffs if demands aren't met. Fear ricocheted around the room. "What's happening out there?" someone shouted from the back, and a wave of panic washed over the crowd. "No," John exclaimed, raising a hand to gather everyone's focus. "We won't let them intimidate us. Let's show them our determination. They may want to walk away, but we're going to make it clear we stand united." His voice gained momentum, and as he spoke, he saw people beginning to rise. Shoulders squared, fists clenched, they were prepared to join him in fighting for their right to exist as a community. "Let's organize a march," Sophie suggested, her eyes blazing with determination. "Show up and show out. Let them know we won't back down." Cheers erupted, and the atmosphere shifted profoundly. fear morphed into a collective joy, raw, courageous, and posited for change. John felt the swell of emotions pulse through him, tension tangling with exhilaration as they joined together, no longer just individuals, but a force of hope. The path forward was still shrouded in uncertainty, but for the first time he felt weight lift off his shoulders. We stand together for our community, our families, and whatever it takes, we will be heard, he cried out, and the crowd erupted, waves of applause echoing high into the rafters. With shared smiles and fierce resolve, they were igniting change, transforming from a fractured group into a united voice singing in harmony. As the meeting adjourned, John caught Lorraine's eye from across the room, and their smiles mirrored each other. They had ignited a fire that could reshape their world. The road ahead remained steep, trembling with possibilities and challenges. Yet inch by inch, the community stood taller together than they ever could apart.
As they ventured out of the center that night, John felt lighter, empowered in the company of those who had once been strangers. In that moment, they truly felt like family. And as the city lights twinkled overhead, a promise lingered in the air. They would rise, together, no matter the storm. Thank you for witnessing this journey with us. Don't just sit back and watch. Now is the time for action. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that will keep inspiring us all. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, showing that united voices matter. Comment below your reactions and feelings about the ending. Your thoughts are powerful. And finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share, because true fans like you understand the importance of supporting our channel.